Hey, we back. I'm here on Discord, and today I'm talking about how to make a Discord server, which sure is an interesting topic. More specifically, how to make an active Discord server, because I'm sure you all know how to make a Discord server. You just scroll to the bottom of your server lists, you press Add Server, and there's a Create My Own button. I don't know why this is white. Why is this white? That's weird. Anyway, you can create your own server like that. It's not hard. What we're talking about is how to make an active server. Now, I have been on Discord for a while. I have been making and moderating servers on Discord for a good while. I would like to think that I know reasonably what kind of things make up a good server on Discord. However, this is not just some black and white, this is how you do it kind of guide, because at the end of the day, what you really need, the most important thing making a good active Discord server is having a good reason for it to be there. If you just make a new server and just start advertising it to people, I'll tell you what, it's not going to work, because no one has a reason to join the server. You always need a reason. Now, this reason could be anything. So for example, with this I am the Senate server, I originally created this reason to just use some bots, and then this server evolved into a server where I play with my friends on said bots. And this is why it's a very small server. Even if we look into some of the more public channels, we only have 13, I guess 15 people on this server. It's not many, and that's because this is not a big server that I'm trying to make a big active server. This server's reason for existing is simply for some friends to do stuff, right? And it succeeds in doing that. On the other hand, we've got things like my server for my channel. The link, as always, is going to be in the description, which is a fair bit bigger, has a lot more people in it. We can try and scroll and find how many people. We've got 200 online right now. I think we've got about 1,200 total in the server, but I guess it's not the right time of day for them all to be online. What can I say? Americans are still asleep, so that's going to be the main thing. And this has succeeded in what it wants to do, which is to, again, mostly to be fair, use bots. We have a lot of bot channels on here. We have the YouTube stuff. And people join here to talk about the YouTube, talk about the bots, talk about like anime and stuff, just generally things that you might see on the channel. It's here, right? So it succeeds in what it's designed to do. When you're making your server, you need to have something that it does. Like I say, if you just make a server for no reason, the chances are people aren't going to join it. The reason can be to talk to your friends, the reason can be to use bots, the reason can be to do whatever. It needs to have a reason. You need to focus the server around that reason. What you'll see in a lot of cases is people making new servers and just adding a bunch of random channels. I'm going to use this server as an initial example for this. This is a pretty old server that someone that I know made, and as you can see by the amount of messages that we get on it, it is not active. It hasn't been in a long time because this server wasn't a huge success. It was originally a server designed for some friends to be talking, pretty much, which is why it's quite small. The issue was that isn't a reason for this one to exist in this case, because all the said friends on this server were already in a server together where we talked. This was just another one. So we had no reason to talk here instead. That means this server doesn't really have a reason for happening, and that's why it's now kind of dead. But if we look at the channels, for instance, the setup of the server in general, you see it's quite stereotypical. You'll probably see a lot of servers like this. You're probably in some yourself. Firstly, you'll notice there is a lot of channels. Considering that there's only 16 people on the server, we have a lot of channels here. If you compare this to my server with about the same number of people, not many channels, and these two are private. So this is basically 5 channels for us, and this is pretty much one for each bot that we used. This one, however, we've got like a general chat. This one was for learning stuff. We've got a videos channel. We've got a food channel. And you can read channel names. You know what's up. And the thing is, a lot of this is kind of redundant. Is there any reason we shouldn't talk about food in the general channel, for example? Now, you can say, oh, yes, but we want to keep the conversations separate. But when you've only got 16 people on a server, keeping conversations separate isn't an issue. You're probably not going to have multiple conversations at once at any rate. And you know what? If you do, that just means your server's active. By splitting stuff up like this, it looks like there's a lot of dead channels, because, well, there are, and it makes the server as a whole look kind of dead. This is actually going to put people off from talking here anyway, because they look at the server and go, well, look at all of these channels that aren't being used. Clearly this server isn't very active. And what you find is someone will come in and put one message in one of the channels and then try and get a conversation going there. But that's only one channel. You've got like 10% of the server being active for that period of time. And then once it stops, you get a different 10%. What you want is the whole server to be active at once. You want everyone involved in something to keep conversations going. So it's actually better to have less channels in that case. Now, of course, that's not to say you should only put one channel in your server, because you might want ones for different things. For example, to have for bots. But I find a lot of servers adding channels like a food channel or a gaming channel is a bit redundant, because you can just talk about them wherever. If it's a big server, however, you can see that this can be quite well done. So, for example, I'm going to use Cyrex as this example, which has actually got a pretty similar layout. We have a lot of channels for a lot of different things. However, you'll notice something. These channels, they have messages, because this server, instead of 16 people, has more like 10,000 people. And so people actually want to have more than one conversation at a time. I can tell you something interesting about this server. They didn't used to have this many channels. How it works is when someone goes, hey, I keep wanting to talk about such and such, but there's so much going on in the main chat that I can't concentrate on my conversation. Since it keeps happening, can we get a channel added for this? And then the moderators can go, yeah, that's a pretty reasonable suggestion, and then add a new channel. Right, so what you actually do is you add channels up and you add more general stuff. It's not just about channels, it can be about bots, it can be about moderation stuff. You kind of build it up as you go, and as your server gets larger and larger, you're going to need more and more stuff to accommodate this. By the time you get to 10,000 people, you probably have a lot of channels. Maybe you do have one for gaming, and you do have one for art, and whatever else, right? This one doesn't have one for food, so if you want to talk about food, you can go to the general channel. You don't have to have a food channel to talk about food, you know? And then you'll get something like, okay, I want to have general conversations, but there's already general conversations going on the chat one, so now we have more chat, right? This was added after the fact, when people realized that actually one chat channel wasn't enough. You don't initially create your server and just go, look, here's 20 channels, because what's going to happen is they're all going to be dead. You slowly build it up. And then if we look at my server again, as an example, when we first started this, all we had was the incoherent typing channel and one Midday channel. I'm pretty sure that's all that was there at the start, nothing else. Maybe a general bots channel as well. Like 3 channels, right, for talking in. And then as time goes on, I've added more. When people say, hey, look, I would like to have this thing, let's add it. So, for example, the most recent suggestion channel-wise was to add this separate Karuta category, because I used to have the Karuta channels down in the bots, and people complained that there wasn't enough Karuta channels, there was too many conversations going on in them. If we're going to have more, they deserve their own category, and I thought, hey, yeah, we've got quite a few Karuta people talking in the Karuta channels. It's becoming a bit messy. We'll add a new channel, right? And then we get a new channel, it goes on. I think you get the point, right? You want to slowly develop your server over time. Now, like I say, this doesn't just apply to channels, it can also apply to bots. My server is a great example of that, because we have a lot of bots here. But did I add all the bots when the server first started? No, not a chance. I added maybe 3 of them, something like that. I think when this server first started, we had Dino for the moderation, Me6 for Me6 purposes, we had Owobot and Midday, and that's probably it. Oh, maybe Tatsumaki as well. And then as time goes on, people say, hey, look, I would like to do this thing. Then you can add a bot for that. So, for example, people on my server said, hey, we would like music. So we added Pancake for music, because music wasn't good enough, apparently. Hey, I'm fine with that. That's not a problem. But yeah, so you add a bot, right? So this is what I'm talking about. You want to slowly build up your server. Don't just create a server and add all the channels in the world. You add all the bots in the world, all the moderation in the world. Like, oh, I'm going to need 5 moderators for my new server. If we have another look at Water Bottle, we can see the moderators of the server, because we have 4 staff channels for 16 people, and you can see there's quite a few staff here. There's 4 of us, and I think there used to be more than that. I mean, you can see here there used to be more than that. So you immediately have like half of the server is apparently moderators. Do you need moderators on this server this size at all? Well, no, not really, because there's nothing to moderate. If anything goes particularly wrong, the owner of the server themselves can take care of it most likely. And if it's just some friends talking, then nothing's really going to go wrong, right? You can use my server again as an example of this. Despite having quite a lot of people, we have just the one mod, and me of course. And we've always had just the one mod. The moderation on my server's fine, we've never had any issues, so I've never added more moderators. You probably don't need a moderator at all on your server if you're only just starting it out, because you're probably not going to have any issues. You add stuff when you need it, right? So this applies to everything. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the advertising bit, because I mentioned that at the start as well. You find a lot of people, they make their new server and they send it out to everyone, all their friends on Discord. They'll be using a website called Disboard, which is also a bot. You probably know about that. Loads of people love using Disboard for some advertising, getting people to join their server, and that's perfectly reasonable, nothing against that. But here's the thing, you've got to think about this carefully, because you don't just want to advertise your server everywhere and hope to get as many members as possible, because getting as many members as possible actually doesn't help so much. This is just something to think about, right? Because of course at the end of the day it's up to you what you do. But if you have, thousands of people in your server, just suppose, but they all joined because they were DM'd a link from some random guy, and they don't know what the server's even about, are they going to talk in the server? I think probably not, really. They're just going to be there, and they're not sure why they're there, but they're there, right? Whereas if you have a server, like I said at the start, with a goal, with a purpose, has a reason for being a server, and people join because they want to engage with that reason, then they're going to talk in the server. It's going to be active, right? So having a small number of people that like being in the server is much better than having a large number of people that aren't really sure why they're there. And you can see this very obviously. My server isn't a great example for this, to be honest, but if you take another server such as this one, this is, as you can tell by the title, an OSU server, and we have here a very small number of people. You can see the online and offline adds up to about maybe 80. So, I mean, it's not the smallest server ever. It's not like the 15 people servers we've been looking at, but this is obviously not large. However, we can look at how many messages it gets, say, during yesterday. Over 1,000. So that's an average of over 10 messages per person. Of course, not everyone in this server is sending those messages, but people that are sending a lot of them. So, despite being very small, you actually get quite a lot of messages in the server. Now, if we use Cyrex as an example again now, I said this one was well organized, but it's actually not very active. So, despite having 10,000 people, if I check the number of messages we had yesterday, it is significantly less, actually. So this server, despite having more people, is actually less active than this one with 100 people. So which server would you rather be in? Now, of course, at the end of the day, which one you'd rather be in boils down to its reason. Do you like Cyrex or do you like OSU? And you're going to join the one that you like the reason of, right? But putting that aside, you probably join the one which is more active, which actually has less members, right? And this can be seen in a lot of servers as well. So for example, if we look at this server, which is the inn, this one has a few more members. We've got 43, maybe 50 total members. And we can look at how many messages these 50 people sent yesterday. Again, it's over 1,000. So this is a very active server as well. I think you get the point. What you want is many active members that have a reason for being there, rather than a large number of members that don't really know what they're doing. So this is why, for example, on my server, I don't actually advertise it. I never have. I periodically say, hey, the link's in the description, which it is, by the way. But like, that's only if you're interested, right? I don't try and encourage people, oh, join my server, everyone, quick. We're going to do giveaways to make sure you all come, because, you know, if you don't want to be in my server, you don't have to join my server, you know? If you're interested, we play bots. If you're not interested in bots, what are you doing on my YouTube channel, to be honest? But putting that aside, If you're not interested in using bots, don't join, because place probably isn't for you. There's a lot of places to use bots as well, so why would you join my one over someone else's? Well, no particular reason for me, really, which is why my server isn't a huge server. Other servers might have some pretty good reasons why you would join theirs. So, for example, we have some Karuta servers. You take Karuta Kit, for example. Here we are. This server's got about 50,000 members now, I think, and it's only for Karuta. But because of the support that they give to people playing Karuta, it does get a lot of people that join it, right? Because they want the stuff that's in this server. My server doesn't offer this kind of support for Karuta, so we don't have 50,000 people, right? You got to trade off what you want to do, right? Prioritize your server on what you want to do, and slowly grow it. That's basically what I'm saying in this video, boiled down to about 2 sentences. Yeah, I feel like there's probably a lot more I could say here. There's a lot more I could say here, like that's an understatement. Probably talk about this kind of subject for a long time, because like I said at the start, I have been making servers for a long time, and I would like to think that I've learned a fair bit about it. There are some mistakes that I've made. If you look at the tunnel sock, for example, this doesn't get a whole lot of messages anymore. We can look during yesterday, for instance, and we can see 130 messages. Not many. Compared to the number of people in this server, you've got 35 online, 200 offline. There's about 250 people here, 130 messages. Not great. And on the other hand, you have a lot of random channels that just aren't really necessary and probably could be deleted. So this is, this was a learning experience for me, how to not make a server, perhaps. Now, to be fair, I think this server is still designed a lot better than a lot of other servers. The channels were still added incrementally as they were needed, but there's no denying that a lot of them are reasonably unnecessary, and I could certainly have made this server better, which is why it's now a bit dead. Me in the future, don't do things like this. Do things like this instead. This is a better server. This is a worse server. There you go. Anyway, yeah. I think I've said pretty much what I wanted to say. Hopefully something that I said during this video was at least reasonably interesting. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, when you're making your server, just have a bit of common sense, Don't expect it to absolutely blow up either. You've got to put some effort in, as with everything. You can't make a new server and expect it to get thousands of people immediately. Because if you do, you're just going to be disheartened when it doesn't happen. It's a slow process. My server here might be doing pretty reasonably, but it's also been up for a year and a half at this point, and it's backed up by my YouTube, which has been up for over 2 years at this point. So, there you go. I might have been a bit lucky, you could say. Anyway, I think we're going to end that video here. This video here. That video? Why would I say that? Because I've been waffling for long enough. That's pretty much the whole video, pretty much all the videos, to be honest. So yeah, like I say, hopefully you learned something from this. Hopefully there is a takeaway. Who knows? Of course, this is all my opinion, and you can do what you like. There will be a lot of people on Discord that say, oh yeah, how to grow your server, just pay someone for a shout out. And yeah, that'll get you some members on your server for sure. Easy way, if you're willing to do that. And if what you want is members on your server, then yeah, sure, pay for a shout out, pay for a giveaway, There's no denying that it works, but it costs money. So there you go, we'll see what happens. But anyway, wish you luck with your server creations, and see you next time. Bye!